welcome to One-on-One on CHCO Television. I'm your host, John Higgins, and we are in the cool spot that you want to be here in St. Stephen. We are at the Limestone Boat Company, where you're building boats.
That's correct.
This is absolutely simply amazing. And it's right here in St. Stephen.
Yes.
Okay, this is Scott Hanson, the CEO of Limestone. And first of all, congratulations for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything that you're doing here. It's absolutely amazing. So, Scott, how did this come about?
Well, Limestone Boats is a brand that's been around for over 40 years now.
Right.
Recreational boats from 17 to 26 feet.
Yep.
Been building boats for recreational boaters from the Great Lakes to Cape Cod to South Florida. They've always been semi-custom built boats. Thousands and thousands have been built over the years. Originally out of Oakville, Ontario.
Okay.
The first boat was built, for those that have a little history, for the Timothy Eaton family, actually.
Eaton's catalog.
Eaton's catalog, Eaton's department store. They commissioned the first limestone to be built, and people ask, why limestone? Limestone's rocks.
I know, when you hear that, yeah.
It is. The Timothy Eaton family on Georgian Bay in the Great Lakes owned an island in the Limestone Islands. And so that's where the name Limestone came from. Yeah, and so limestone boats have been built from a barrel of resin to what you see behind me in terms of a finished product going out the door.
A lot of you build the complete boat right here in St. Stephen at the plant. Some people think that parts are made here and then sent. No.
We think of it as we build our own fiberglass parts.
Yeah.
And as we go look at the process, you'll see molds and tooling.
So you're going to show us that.
And we'll show you that. And so we actually build those parts, then we trim those parts, then we buy hardware and engines and these kind of things from outside, and we install those. And then what goes out the end of the process is you turn the key and you go boating on Passamaquoddy Bay and from here throughout the world. Boats, you'll find limestones in Northern Europe, you'll find them in South Florida, you'll find them on the West Coast. Yep.
That's amazing, that's amazing.
But anyway, how did we end up here? The family that had been building limestone boats for some 35 years in Ontario made a decision that they were going to retire.
Yep.
They decided they didn't want to build boats. There was no more family members in the family that wanted to continue it on.
Yeah.
And they were surrounded by development in Oakville, Ontario. So I'm a longtime boat builder, got my education in the Northeast as a yacht designer and traditional wooden boat builder.
Really?
And was a resident of rural Ontario at the time. And one of our board members, as Limestone being a public company, said, would you consider the Maritimes? And I said, when we were looking for a new home for Limestone. And I said, I hadn't really thought of it other than knowing that 80% of the boats that Limestone has built over the years go to New England.
Right over there.
And it's right across the river.
Right across the river.
So
that's amazing.
Well, individual said, well, let's have a chat with ONB. And so we picked up the phone in January of 2023.
Yeah.
And I had a chat with the folks at ONB in Fredericton, and we started to talk about where might limestone locate to and what was important to me. So I had a wish list of what was going to be important, one of the biggest things being labor.
Yeah.
Proximity to market, we knew that was here.
Yeah.
It's the availability of labor. I don't care whether you're in middle America or you're in central Canada or you're on the Maritimes, you're in the Pacific Northwest or Vancouver. It's the issue is, do we have a trainable labor force? Even though there's this tremendous rich history in the Maritimes of boat building,
really,
it's commercial boat building, which is different than high-end recreational boat building.
Which this is high-end.
This is what this is. So it's a little bit of a different skill. Yeah. And so one of the things, when I expressed that concern, one of the exciting and unique things that happened is somebody at ONB said, I'd like to introduce you to working at the folks at Petal and working NB and the New Brunswick Community College, because we have a history of doing private-public sector partnerships.
Okay.
And we got the St. Andrews campus, which in fact had a wooden boat building school for years.
Yeah.
Before I changed my career and went back to school, this was my first stop to look at. I actually came to, that was the last time I was in St. Andrews, it was 30 some odd years ago, when I looked to change my career and said, do I want to go to the wooden boat school? And I said, no, I want to get to where we are, which is high-tech vacuum infusion. So I happened to go to Maine, where I could learn that 30 some odd years ago. And, but to fast forward to today, so I came down here, I had a visit to St. Andrews and this area a year ago, April, actually, was my first time here.
Yeah.
And a year ago, April, we set our sights on coming to this area, to Charlotte County. And here we are today. Less than a year later, we started operations we started the Limestone School of Boat Building at the MBCC campus on November 27th. And we took in our first 25 students It's a paid training program so that I could assure us, the company, that we could have a capable and competent labor force at the end of the process,
Right.
so that we could come here to our new home and start building boats. And our partnership with the college sees us bring in another 20 employees in the fall, another 20
This coming fall.
this fall in September, another 20 next spring, another 20 next fall. We look to hire upwards of 200, 250 people here in this facility, and in an expanded facility on the footprint. One of the things that attracted me here to this location was obviously proximity to labor.
Yeah.
And this is a 17-acre parcel of land. So when I met with the
It's
town,
huge, this building,
yeah, it
this
is.
plan.
The building is only 33,000 square feet, but there's a tremendous amount of room
Yeah.
out back. So without being disturbing to the community,
Yeah.
we can have the additional square foot and expand
Okay.
to allow us to get to a place where we can meet the demand for our products. So
Isn't this
we're
something?
fortunate to have a great following. We're fortunate to have distribution throughout Canada and the United States at
Right.
retail.
Yeah.
We just need to build the facility, attract the labor force, and do it here instead of Ontario or the States.
Exactly. So the graduates
Yep.
just graduated Friday,
Yes.
okay? They're certified, am I right?
Yeah, they got a certificate of accomplishment
Okay.
in the field of assembly
Yes?
and lamination.
Okay.
So
And they are here.
they are here working now. Yep. They started building boats for Limestone on
So
Monday.
you go to school,
Yep.
and then you walk into your job the next, you graduate Friday and you come to work Monday.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
What's wrong with that?
No, it's funny. One of the students actually said that when I went online and I saw this in social media back in July, August of last year, I thought this was a hoax.
Really?
Said this is too good to be true. I'm going to get paid to go to school
Yeah,
and then be
yeah.
guaranteed a job at the other end.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's a bit of a unique twist. You know, typically we bring apprentices into a manufacturing environment. It's incredibly disruptive. It's onerous to the trainee. It's
Yeah.
disruptive to the manufacturing process.
Right.
There's a lot of standing around, and so what you end up with turnover unnecessarily as a result of trying to train on the job.
Exactly.
So when ONB made the introduction to the college and said, hey, we have this great facility, we'll transform what used to be used for a plumbing program
Okay.
into a boat building facility where you can do, I say it's akin to grade 9 science. We're doing grade 9 lab science work.
Really?
We're teaching them the skills in that environment. We had access to a classroom.
I'm
so
trying
we-
to think if I failed grade 9 science or not. I don't think so.
And then we moved here in January, and the boat you see behind me is a customer's boat, which needed some work on it.
Yes?
That they had an accident with in the Gulf of Maine. So we said, we'll take your boat. We can use it as a teaching aid. So we had the benefit of a boat here because we're restarting operations here.
Exactly.
So it's been a great asset to us here. And we ended up actually coming here into this facility sooner than we expected, really because the students wanted to make it their home.
Exactly.
And who are now our employees, but
Yeah.
they wanted to make it their home.
Now, the next bunch that comes in, the next hires that come in,
Yes.
do they go to St. Andrews also?
They will. They'll spend 6-7 weeks
Okay,
at the
and they'll
college
come here.
and do classroom work in terms
Yep.
of theory and from basic safety to learning how we do what we do. How
Yep.
do we take a barrel of resin in
Yep.
at the beginning of the process,
Yep.
and why do we choose that barrel of resin? Why do we choose the fabric? Why do we
Okay,
choose
okay,
the
yeah.
processes that we
Absolutely.
do? And then they get their hands dirty and they actually physically do those kinds of things. And then we teach them all about wiring and plumbing and
Yeah.
electrical. One of the things about a boat is that you have to do it all.
Yeah.
You don't bring in different trades like building a house.
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
to frame
yeah.
it, somebody to frame it, somebody to
no, you're
put the
doing it
electrical
all.
in, somebody to do the plumbing. No, we do it all.
We're coming to the exciting part. Scott is going to take us on a tour of how you build a boat from resin coming in that door into something like that going out the other door.
Yep.
That sounds excellent. We'll be right back and we'll go on tour. Hey, we're back. And we are on the actual plant floor
Yep.
as boats are being built.
Yes.
Right? The boats are being built.
Yes.
Right? Right?
Yes.
For Limestone Boat Building. I'm with Scott once again. Scott is going to give us a tour. How do you build a boat
Yes.
from resin coming in down there
Yep.
to an actual boat going out here?
Yes.
What in the world is this?
What is it? This is a very typical hull mold. This is a hull mold for a 20-foot limestone.
Okay.
We build 2 different models out of this boat. We build a runabout version and we build a center console version we're going to see at the end of explaining the process. This is our most important asset. This is what we call a tool or a mold.
Yeah.
And what's happening here behind us is that these 2 individuals are making sure that the finish quality on that mold is like a mirror. So
Whoa.
that every time we build a boat,
Yeah.
it looks like that when we pop it out of the mold. So think of it as a bathtub, and out of it we're just going to pop a hull.
Oh, okay.
So what
Okay.
happens is we build everything backwards. So our tooling is our most important asset. The care and feeding of the tooling in this mold is critical. We want it to be absolutely mirror finish so that every part we pull out of it is a mirror finish. And that speaks to the quality of what we build and why we have such a big backlog of orders for the boats that will come out of this plant. So what's happening is they're bringing it up to like 3, 4, 5,000 grit. So it's just a mirror type finish on the surface of the boat. What we do is we build it, we spray the color in first. So when you see a finished boat, you look at a beautiful blue boat or a red boat or a white boat. So we spray the color in first, then we build the structure in that, and we'll go see that in vacuum infusion and how that happens. Then we build the structure and give it strength so it doesn't just sort of fall apart when we pull it out of the mold. And then we put another tool in, which we'll go look at, which creates the seating. And that goes into this piece. And then, so it's a bit like building a house. We build but we're doing it backwards. We're painting it first, and then we're building the structure, and then we're putting the furniture in it, and the plumbing, and the electrical.
And that's all done
And then
here.
the engine, it's all done here.
All done right here.
Everything. We start with a barrel of resin,
I love that.
and we finish where we turn the key and go boating. So
That's amazing. So
But-
is this used over and over again?
over and over and over again.
Oh, okay.
So
And what's-
typically you might get about 500 to 600 units out of this mold before
Okay.
you have to build a new mold.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And that's sort of the life of the tool, because the process of fiberglass lamination is that you heat it up, and
Yeah.
that's what cures fiberglass, and then it cools off. And so by heating and cooling and heating and cooling, it's torture for the material.
Yeah.
So eventually it might start to, you get deformation in the finish, and we don't want that. We want to look down the side of a hull, and we want it to look like a mirror. You can see yourself as if you were in the bathroom, and we want it to be just perfect.
People like me can say, that's beautiful.
That's right. You're exactly right.
Isn't this something?
So every time we go to build a mold, we wax, we get a quality finish, we then wax it, because when we spray paint in it, we need it to pull off it. So we get a quality finish, then we wax it, then we build the structure, and then we pull it out.
That's amazing. So this is the beginning.
This is step 1. Step 1 is the care and feeding of the tooling,
Yeah.
making sure it's pristine.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is we'll wax it next week.
Yeah.
It'll go into our spray booth, and we'll put the first coat of, which is the finish coat.
Okay.
And that's in our industry, we call that gel coat. It's not like the paint you put on your house.
No, okay.
It's a harder finish.
Yeah.
And we might have a different color bottom and a different color side of the boat or hull side. What you see, the black line in this, that tells
Yeah.
us where to put the stripe.
Okay.
So here in the Maritimes, we called it a boot stripe because you walked into the water and there was a line on your boots was the height of the water. So that's where the water sits. When that boat sits in the water meets the hull right in that area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when we see the finished boat, we're going to see a line on it, and that's the water line, or the boot top stripe, as they call it here in the Maritimes or the northeastern U.S.
Wow.
That just tells us where to do it every time, so we don't have to tape it and think of, oh, where do I have to put that?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So
What's the next
it's a
step?
cheater. The next step we're going to go look at is the liner, which goes into that to form our seating. The next big part.
We're here.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go see what we're
Okay.
going to set.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. Okay, Scott. We are now in the, what's that department?
This is what we call a liner deck mold. So as I was explaining earlier, we have 3 major large parts in a boat. We have the hull, which we just looked at.
Right.
We have a stringer grid, and then we have a liner deck. And so if you think of it as, this is what we will do, is we will spray the color, we will build the structure, but then the difference is we'll pop it and we'll flip it over.
This is upside down.
This is upside down, and it will ultimately form the deck, which is what we see along the sides, the sole of the boat, which is what we walk on when we're inside the boat.
Yeah.
And we see an abraded structure here. That's the non-skid, so we make sure we don't slip when we're on the boat and it's wet, versus a finished surface, which
Is it this on the other side too? Because this is going to be
this
flipped
is on
over.
the Yeah, this is what's going to, this forms that non-skid.
Oh,
Because it's a mold, so we need, whatever we have in
Oh,
here,
okay.
we end up with, okay?
Oh, okay.
And again,
Yeah.
just like the home mold, we can build part after part after part, but one of the things that happens is we have care and feeding of these parts, because when we pull the part, because we end up with some little damage every once in a while. So what Danny's doing here is he's repairing that damage, having pulled apart, and we then have to repair that damage. And it's care and feeding that happens after so many pulls. Even though you've cared for it and waxed it and done all the things you need to do, it still happens. And off this tool, many, many, many boats have been pulled. So
This process is meticulous. It's perfect. They've got to be perfect.
they do. I mean, it's a question of the quality you build. I mean, it's a bit like the automotive industry. I can buy a Chevy and it's got 4 wheels and it goes down the road and it costs me X.
Yeah.
Or I can buy a Cadillac. It
Yeah.
comes out of the same plant, GM
Yeah.
plant, and I can pay a whole lot more. It has
Yeah.
4 wheels, it goes down the road.
Right.
But it's a different level of quality, fit
Are
and
these the
finish.
Cadillacs?
And so, yeah, we're in that world. So it's
Oh, okay.
it's a level of quality, fit and finish. So we put a whole lot of attention to the quality of the finish, the care and feeding of our tooling, because when we pull that part, we want it to be beautiful.
Yeah.
We want it to be perfect. We don't want to have to repair it when we pull it. So that we can build these fiberglass parts, we can pull them, we can trim them, we can put them together and end up with a finished product, which we then install the motor, plumbing, electrical, navigation systems, etc. on.
And that's, again, it's
Another
all
part
done
of the-
right here.
It's all done right here.
You're not sending any of this out of here. to
No,
go
the only thing that
someplace
goes
else.
out of here is a boat on a tractor trailer that I can turn a key when it gets to the water in
That's
front. So,
amazing. That's
yep,
amazing.
yep. So, but what Danny's doing is really, it's all part of the process. It's the care and feeding of our molds and our tools is critically important so that when we pull parts, they're perfect.
Built, when you say built by hand, you mean it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Danny
Yeah.
over there.
Yep. Yep, you're correct.
That's simply amazing. Okay, so we're getting ourselves a boat.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought what we could show you next is we could show you, I talk about putting color on first or gel coat, and then I
Yeah.
talk about building structure.
Yeah.
I'd show you some of the materials we use to build the
Oh,
structure.
super. Okay, let's go
Okay.
check it out.
Okay.
Okay, Scott. Now, this is interesting. What is this?
What I thought I'd do is I keep talking about we spray the color,
Right.
then we build structure. So I thought it'd be
Right.
good to explain to you and show you how what I mean by that.
Oh, please.
This is a small part. We've shown you hulls and deck liners.
Yeah.
This is actually a hatch lid. So think of it as a cupboard door in your kitchen. But if I want to store my stuff in my boat, I might have something. This is where hinge pockets, this is where hinges go, just like on your cupboard doors. And here there's going to be a handle and I'm going to open it up. But I talked about spraying color. So here's the gel coat that went on a small part first. And then we build the structure of the part, okay? So we have to give it strength so that when we trim this off, it actually is like a cupboard door in your kitchen.
Yeah.
It's got to be strong. So we have the fiberglass material,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about that. Then we have core. In the old days, we used to build strength with thickness. Well, that's heavy.
Yeah.
And then we need bigger engines and more gasoline. And so we want to build stronger, lighter parts consistently. And so what we do is we choose the kinds of fabrics that we use and the kinds of cores that we use to allow us to not only build a strong, light part, so we ultimately end up with a lighter boat, but it's strong.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a choice of materials. So here's what we have is the materials that we use. And this is just 3 examples. We have the first thing that goes on behind the gel coat that we spray in a mold is what's called a stitch. This is not a spit. This is what we call CSM, chopped strand mat. So this is fiberglass, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what people think of. What's fiberglass?
Yeah,
Well, these
so they're
fibers are
fiberglass.
glass fibers, okay?
Yeah.
And it comes in a material, and it allows us to then take a mold and put it in the mold, and it allows us to take its shape, okay?
Yeah.
So the first thing we do behind the gel coat is we put this in. Then we want to build structure with strength, you know? The I-beams in this building, they're different thicknesses, they're different heights, they're
Okay.
different. Well, the same thing goes with glass fiber. What happens is you see this material, it's oriented 45 degrees and 90 degrees.
Right.
It's a certain thickness. This material is oriented 90 and 90 degrees. It has different structural properties. And so we use a combination of these fabrics. We might put this in on top of that, and then we might put some of this in on top of that, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll put our core on top of that.
What's that mean? What's that
This
mean?
is a core, so it gives stiffness to the panel. Just like if I take this sheet, it has no resilience
yeah,
to it.
yeah,
If I have
yeah.
this fiberglass piece,
Yeah.
it's not.
Right.
But when I add resin to it, and I add a stiffener to it, and I end up with one laminate, all of a sudden, it becomes, when it cures, it becomes strong like this, right?
Wow.
Okay, so one of the neat things about fiberglass boat building is that it allows us to build molds and use fiber, materials, cloth as we call it, and structures to take whatever shapes we want. It's not like building out of steel or aluminum
Yeah.
that has a restriction.
Yeah.
I can build whatever I want
Whatever you want from a mold.
from a mold, right?
Yeah.
So we use a variety of different materials. That's all glass fibers.
That's fiberglass.
And it's weaved into a different type of material. We add resin to it, which we're going to show you when we show how
Okay.
infused.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And then that, when it cures,
Yeah.
it goes to the shape of the mold. This popped out of a mold, and we'll show you one actually popped out of a mold. So, and then we have a choice of all different kinds of cores, as you can see here.
Why the different cores?
And because they have different structural properties.
Oh, okay.
This is stronger than that is. One of
Oh, I
the,
see.
the reason this is all scored is it allows me to take the shape of something. So that hull has shape to it, right? And the
Yeah.
hull behind has shape to it. Well,
Yeah.
there's core on the bottom of that boat. Well, this allows it to take the shape of the bottom of the boat.
Okay.
Whereas if I take if I'm trying to put something on the transom of the boat, which is a flat surface,
Yeah.
I'll use this kind of material because I don't need it to take shape like this material. So it's just scored. And unlike using plywood, marine plywood, or wood,
Yeah.
it's not going to rot. It's not going to wick moisture like a sponge.
Really?
It's not going to rot. So we're building a boat that's going to outlast you and I.
Yeah. Yeah.
As people you say sometimes, you find a limestone as a line item on a will.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
we
yeah,
build
yeah.
them to last. There are limestones that are 30 and 40 years old that
Wow.
for people that cared for them, they look like they're new. And that's the
That is
reputation that
something
limestone has. That's why we get to be here doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because for the years, the people before us built a quality boat.
Yeah.
They built a quality
And you're
brand.
just
and
continuing,
we
right?
have the chance to do that again here
Yeah.
in St.
That's
Stephen's.
something
So,
else. That is something
it's,
else. Wow.
And then this film is something we'll talk about when we go to the next step. When
Okay.
we talk about vacuum infusion, because for years we built boats, and we still build boats, calling hand layup. If we went to one of the lobster yards here in the Maritimes or
Yeah.
in New Brunswick, we'd
Yeah.
see them laying up fiberglass and slopping on
Yeah.
resin.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In creating this facility here, we're using high-tech composites or high-tech lamination. So it's what we call vacuum infusion. What it means is that it's akin to I can come to work
Yeah.
and I can put on a suit and a mask and all these things every day,
Yeah.
or I can come to work in my sneakers and my t-shirt and I can prep a part and go. So what we're going to see is we're going to go walk
Is that
over
where
and
we're
we're going to
going
see
next?
how infusion is done.
Let's go check it out.
Okay.
Okay. Whoa. Now, Scott. this is interesting.
So this is a small part. This is what we call a hatch. So think of it as a cupboard door that's going to go on the seat of a boat. But I've got to be able to walk on it.
Yeah.
But what the team has mocked up here for you is an example of the vacuum infusion process. So every part that we build here at Limestone, whether it's that full-size hull we saw at the beginning of getting together, at scale,
Yeah.
we do exactly the same thing, just in a larger process. So everything is vacuum infusion. Why do we do vacuum?
Okay, yeah.
Why do we vacuum infusion? Because it's not that a hand laid up boat is bad, but we can create a higher quality part more consistently. It's lighter, it's stronger, and it's a much nicer environment to work in. So for the most of the time that we're preparing the part, getting it ready, we're in our t-shirts and our sneakers, But when we're actually going to infuse the part, the reason you see some of our team members here wearing masks is they're working with chemicals that it's better to wear an organic vapor mask, so they can do that.
Okay.
Right? So the best safety precaution is something that's critically important to us, so that's where they are. So we talked about just a few minutes ago about, building the structure in a mold. So this came out of a mold, right?
Right.
This is a small hatch. This is a large hatch, okay?
This is going
Yep.
to be a hatch.
And this was built exactly the same way.
Oh, okay.
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 So what happens first, just like we talked about a few minutes ago, is the guys have prepped the part. So they waxed the surface of the mold.
Yeah.
Then they laid in the fabrics, okay, in terms of chop strand mat. But first they gel coated it. Then they put the color in first. Then they layered in chop strand mat. Then they put some fabric in. Then they put some core in. Then they put a flow medium, which is the blue medium we see here, that allows the resin to flow through the part, through the fiberglass and the cloth.
Yeah.
Then there's a peel ply as well, which when the part is finished, we just peel that off and we get a finish that's really nice. So what's going to happen here is we're going to infuse the resin, and that's why it's called vacuum infusion. So we're going to infuse the resin into the part and allow it to flow across the entire part. And it's going to get pulled through by the vacuum pump, which is down over here. And it doesn't matter whether we're building a little hatch or we're building a full-size hull. We do it the same way. It's just scaled.
Whoa.
There's more tubes, there's more material, but it's all done in one thing, one process, and one shot, as Andrew likes to say, and our engineer. But it's enclosed. So instead of having the fumes and all of the smell of fiberglass and resin and all the time, no, it's all done enclosed underneath what we call a vacuum bag. And
Which is what this is.
That's this film. Okay.
Okay. So are the guys going to show us how this works?
They are.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that the material you see around here creates the vacuum seal on this surface, and that's why this is all sealed up.
I see.
So it is under vacuum right now.
Oh, it is.
They do what's called a drop test, so they want to make sure that the vacuum has no holes in it. There's no breaks in this butyl tape. There's no way for air to get in. Otherwise, the process won't work.
Why?
So because it won't pull the resin through the part because there's air leaking in different places.
Wow,
so.
let's check.
Yeah.
We have no air going in here, guys. Whoa, that is cool.
Yes.
So guys, can you show us how we do this?
Okay. We're just waiting for the pump to get up to pressure.
Yeah.
And now he's just opening a valve. You can see the resin coming through.
Right.
So it's catalyzed, so it now has a certain amount of working time in the part.
Okay.
So now it's going into that manifold, and now you can see it diffusing through the part, through the flow medium.
Yeah.
And we're going to watch it go through the entire part.
Boys, it's covering everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So instead of us sitting there with rollers and resin and slopping it around with paint brushes and trying to pull it through and make sure we get good saturation, it's all controlled. So you get a stronger, lighter part with more consistency and a nice B-side finish. So.
Whoa. So that's, this is starting to make sense.
Yeah, isn't it? Good. So now they're just going to, at scale, we have a pump that actually you pull the resin out of much larger containers, 45-gallon drums.
Yeah.
We're just doing this for demonstration purposes for you. So what they'll do is they'll run through a container, a quart of resin, they'll turn it off, then they'll put some more product in there. And
I often wondered what you meant by, I didn't know
vacuum
what resin
infusion
was.
and resin? Okay.
Yeah.
Resin is the material, just like when you go to the hardware store and you buy 5-minute epoxy or 10-minute epoxy in the two tubes.
Yeah.
You've got a catalyst and you've got a resin, a hardener.
Okay.
And you've got a resin, and it allows you to do. We're just doing that at scale in a completely different.
Yeah.
It allows us to put the fabric in and take the shape of the part, and then put the resin in, and then when the resin kicks and hardens through an exotherm process, which means that it's heat that causes it to kick, just like that 10-minute epoxy you buy at the hardware store.
Yeah.
And then the part holds its shape forever.
Right.
It's the same basic principle.
And this is done on every step.
Every single part that we manufacture, every fiberglass part that we manufacture is done this way, or will be done this way here in this facility. From little parts like this, lids and bins and things like that,
didn't realize
to full-size hulls.
I didn't realize that you did that. You build everything.
Yeah.
The doors, the drawers.
So that's what these individuals here and other individuals in our lamination department learned at the college, through their college program. So we taught the fundamentals of hand layup, then infusion, basics of infusion, then infusion in small parts, and actual molds and tools so that they can be here today. They did this all on their own in setting it up and having it ready and getting them to the place where. So you can see now that the majority of the part below is now has its resin flowing through it, but it keeps a consistent thickness and shape. So.
Now, is he watching to make sure that everything's covered? That's what you're doing?
Yes.
How long does that take? I suppose the size of the different
size of the different size of the part is really what dictates it. But then on a large part, you'll have multiple ports. And you'll have multiple distribution channels, multiple vacuum channels, so that you create, and you'll start in the middle, so you say at the keel or the bottom of the hull, and then you'll work your way up. And you'll have multiple ports that you're turning on and turning off.
I see.
And then what happens is that'll you have so much working time.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can choose your resin, you can choose your catalyst, you can choose the percentages based on how much time you need to work with the part. What it means is how much time do you need to allow that resin to flow through the part before it's complete saturation.
Yeah.
And I can stop. And then what's going to happen is it's going to heat up and it's going to cure.
Oh, okay.
So it's heat that cures the chemicals. But it's its own heat. We don't have to heat it. We don't have to put it in an oven.
I was just going to ask you that.
It's just natural ambient temperature.
Yeah.
So it's important for us. One of the things that was attractive about this facility here is that it's air conditioned and heated. So we have a constant temperature so that we're not too hot or too cold. Because that would affect the cure time and the quality of the part. So now you can see the resin creeping up on the sides here.
Does he want to fill this all the way up to here?
We would ultimately want to bring it to here. But really, at the end of the day, when we pull this part, we're going to trim it here. So we want full saturation and quality up to a certain part on the what we call a flange.
Yeah.
And then we're not worried because that's all scrap.
Yeah.
We trim that off.
I see. So will that...
When we create the lid here.
When will this be ready to come off today?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it cures very quickly. So that's where I say we can affect the curing time based on the relationship, the type of hardener or catalyst, or the amount that we put in, the percentage of catalyst that we mix with the resin. So we can control the cure time within a window. Yeah. It's not a complete discretion, John, but it's, you know, these are all things that our manager of engineering knows intimately in terms of training these guys and picking the resins, picking the cure times of those catalysts, and based on the size of the parts.
Well, what's next?
We were going to show you just what happens when you pull apart.
Yeah, great. Let's go check it out.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, Scott, we're getting into the heavy stuff. What are we doing?
Well, we just finished up showing you an infusion, so we showed how we make a part. It didn't matter whether we're building a hatch like that or building a full hull boat. Right. Everything that we build here at Limestone is infused. So from small parts to full-size boat.
Now I know what infusion is. I love it.
So these are parts that were infused, and the next step is you pull it out of the mold. This is actually a swim platform for the 20-foot center console behind us over there. And
so this is actually going to go on that boat?
It actually would go on a new boat.
On a new boat,
Another one. Yeah. So it goes. That actually hangs off the transom, allows you to get out of the water, step on it, and get out. So that's why we call it a swim platform.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's just a small part. It's one of the many small parts that makes up a boat. Typically, you have your 3 big parts, and then you might have 8 or 10 other small parts that make up a 20, 30-foot boat. So in terms of the fiberglass parts.
You build it from the bottom up.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
Yeah. One of the things that we haven't talked about today is we're very focused on the fiberglass process of manufacturing. We build our own parts, and then we put all those parts together. Yeah. And then behind us we have wiring harnesses that are being built. There's all the other parts when we put that together, the electronics, the navigation, the engines.
You do the electronics?
That's all done here, yeah. We don't build the dash from the perspective of your Garmin electronics. We order that in, but we put that in. Those systems, those integrated systems all go in by us.
They're all installed.
Yes.
Like you said, it goes out a full boat when it goes out that door.
Yes.
It's a complete turnkey operation, if you will.
Correct.
So the guys are going to take
Yeah, they're going to come in here and remove this finished part. It's fully cured.
This has got the resin all in it.
Yeah,
That's
so
all-
what
that's
happens
all
is
in-
we see a nice smooth finish. So
Yeah,
they've
all
ripped the
infused.
peel ply off already. They've taken the vacuum tubes off, and
Yeah.
etc. And
Yeah.
now it's time to pull that part.
Okay, this is going to be.
Yeah.
So, hey guys,
Come on, guys.
should we be suited up?
No,
No.
no.
Yeah, but they look cool.
They don't need to be wearing masks and suits. They could do this in their sneakers if they wished. So they will use plastic wedges.
Yeah.
To be honest, we already pulled these parts just to make sure it's easy and you can see what happens quickly. But this is the process that we would otherwise use. Use plastic wedges to remove the gel coat, which is the other side of the finish, from the
Right.
mold
Yep.
itself, because it's been waxed, and then they pull it apart and we end up with that finished part.
Wow.
Again, so it's
Perfect, guys. Look at that. Perfect. Now, he's checking for...
you want to look for, because this is the first time you get to see the actual finish.
Yeah.
So the care and feeding that we saw in the very beginning,
Yeah.
making sure the quality of the finish, that there's no voids, there's no air pockets between the gel coat and the structure.
Yeah.
They'll look, so quality control, Oda's responsible for our quality control, working with Jay and making sure that every part is inspected, that it passes quality assurance.
Yeah.
Then what'll happen is this will go to the trim department and they'll trim off all these external flanges.
Done here.
Because we
That's
don't,
all trimmed
yeah,
here.
That's all excess material. We don't need this.
Okay.
So you'll end up trimming the part probably, somewhere around here.
Yeah.
Usually an inch above the flange, and then it can get installed on a boat.
That's simply amazing. How long does it take to build a boat from the time the resin comes in there until it goes
I
out?
would say if you just looked at the number of hours,
Yeah.
and you said how many hours does it take, a 20-foot boat should take you about 3 weeks.
Okay.
But there's cure times and there's process and that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
usually 2 to 3 months to build that boat from the time it started to the end, but it's actually about 3 to 4 weeks of physical time on a
okay,
5-day work week,
yeah.
sort of 40-hour day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest boat you built is
29 feet.
20. That's a good sized boat.
Yes, yes. So if you come back in a month or 2 months, you can
You'll have a
see big
full-size
boats
boat.
being built. Yeah.
That's
So-
excellent.
As we just started production on Monday, and today's Thursday. So
Yeah.
we're just getting started here in
Yeah.
St. Stephen. So
Well, I don't know how to tell you. It's so great to have you here, to
Okay.
have this here in St. Stephen, in Charlotte County, in the whole area going down, down the coast. This is amazing what you've done and what you can do.
well, we're fortunate. I mean, we found this group of 25 employees, student
Yeah.
employees that
Yeah.
went through the training program at the college,
Yeah.
and we're excited to have our next wave of employees go through that. Student employees go through that paid
And the
training
next
program.
wave of employees goes through
They
in
start in September,
in
so it'll be a
September.
fall training program, and
Yeah.
then
So-
they'll join us here in the plant
So
in the new
how,
year.
how do, if I now that I know how to do it, and I want, and I want to take
You
the
want a
course,
job?
how do you go to apply? How do you?
Our careers at limestoneboats.com.
Yeah,
So,
super.
yep.
Well, listen, thank you for doing this. This is absolutely great.
Oh, my pleasure. Our pleasure.
I know you're going to do great because it's much needed.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's going to do it for us here at Limestone Boat Company. There you go. Right here on CHCO. I'm going to be back on the next time on CHCO Television, and I'll tell you what, I'll see you then.